Welcome to the AfriChild Center, where we strive for an Africa where children's well-being is realized for sustainable development. The AfriChild Center exists to generate research that informs policy and practice for the well-being of children.
Established in 2013, the AfriChild Center is focused on children, on the African child. Our vision is to see an Africa where child well-being is realized for sustainable development. Across the continent of Africa, and specifically sub-Saharan Africa, we continue to witness the plight of children across different spheres of life. Child poverty is on a high. Violence against children continues to plague the lives of children. We have very many children that are orphaned, child-hated households, a high school dropout rate with many children out of school or without the ability to access school and health services. Our institution, the AfriChild Center, has a regional outlook with the intention of generating evidence through research to help inform decisions that are made at policy level, but also at practice level, to help improve on the well-being of children. Our philosophy is hinged on the fact that if we want to see socio-economic transformation of Africa, it will happen through investment in children. As an organization, we have mapped out 3 core program areas that define the work that we do. One is research, and so we undertake child-focused research to inform policy and practice. 2 is we work to build the capacity of researchers, owing to the fact that we don't have enough researchers, especially child-focused researchers, generating evidence to inform the decisions that we make. But also building the capacity of the policymakers to be able to use evidence generated through research to inform the decisions and the policies they are formulating. If we are able to achieve the visions that we have, Vision 2030, it's imperative that we invest in the well-being of children.
Join us in our mission to transform the lives of children across Africa. Together, we can make a lasting impact. To learn more about the AfriChild Center and how you can support our work, visit our website or follow us on social media.
I want to take this opportunity to thank all the participants, those who have been working with us this journey ever since we started the webinar series, and those who are new, who have newly joined us today. Thank you very much for sparing time to share, but also learn together with us. We are ready to learn from you through the QA section. If you have any question, you can actually write it in the QA section in the process so that you don't forget. We have also the chat that you can write in your question or your concern or anything you want to the presenter to reflect on. But also, as we write, we shall also have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation for us to speak out and then promote learning between us and the world wherever you are stationed. As AfriChild is introduced, I also request that you can introduce yourself in the chat room, where you're going to just put your name, your designation, but also where you are joining us from, so that we can have that record within us. So as I said, we are delighted to have Associate Professor Kasahun Tilahun from Addis Ababa. Maybe say something more about Associate Professor. Dr. Kasahun Tilahun holds a PhD in development psychology and brings over 20 years of experience in child and adolescent development, education, child rights, and gender equality. Currently, he serves as an assistant professor of psychology at the Center of Human Rights at Addis Ababa University, where he combines academic rigor with a passion for human rights and empowerment. Beyond academia, Dr. Kasahun plays a pivotal role as a core principal investigator for the AfriChild Stretch project, from which this evidence is derived from today that is going to share with us. And as a senior researcher in gender and adolescence in global evidence, his extensive experience spans university teaching, research, and consultancy for local and international NGOs, where he has contributed to evidence-based policy and program development. Recognized as an engaging instructor, dedicated researcher, and collaborative professional, Dr. Kasahun is known for his enthusiasm and commitment to advancing ECD, child rights, and justice. So that is Associate Professor Kasahun Tilahun to you. And I, at the moment, want to pass the microphone to him to take us through what decolonizing, decolonizing ECD in a humanitarian setting is all about. Thank you. You're welcome, Dr. or Associate Professor Tilahun.
Thank you. Thank you, John, for the moderation and for introducing myself. Thank you, AfriChild, for giving me this opportunity to share my views, my insights, my experiences to the AfriChild audience. And I have to thank the audience as well for investing your time to be with us for the next 1 hour to share mine and your insights among each other. So the topic of my presentation is decolonizing ECD in humanitarian settings, evidence from Ethiopia. Through the AfriChild Stretch project, I and my team have been participating in different kinds of research endeavors, informative, baseline, and co-designing process as well. Therefore, today I'm going to share with you some of my experiences and lessons that I have been learning through my research experience in the refugee camp, especially in Bambasi. So my presentation will have 4 sections. The first would be just the background to introduce what I'm going to just present. Next would be just roughly explain about the methodology of the baseline and the co-designing and how I'm just integrating these 2 approaches to just design this presentation. And next would be sharing the findings and the co-design solution that I and my team brought up for you. And then finally, I will have a conclusion. So I will try to just use my time effectively. So as you know, ECD is crucial and it is critical for later human development. And it is believed to be among sociologists, psychologists, and medical scientists that early childhood development is a foundation for cognitive, language, physical, and psychosocial development of adolescence and adulthood as well. And it significantly influences the development of adulthood, especially health and well-being of adulthood is a function of a healthy development of children, especially up to 5 years of age, and major problem-solving skills and different kinds of learning skills are mainly emanated from a healthy development of early childhood development. To the opposite, adverse experiences during early childhood could heighten the risk of a range of poor social, cognitive, and health outcomes. And it, in fact, could lead to economic dependency, violence, crime, substance misuse, and even adult onset on non-communicable diseases. All these kinds of adverse experiences, adverse developments are mainly the effect of poor early childhood development. And even at a wider range, the development of nation is also highly a function of the development of children. As the study of the World Bank indicates, the average country's per capita gross domestic product would be 7% higher than it is just now, had stunting or malnutrition been eliminated at earlier age. Therefore, we see if they are well nourished, if they are well raised and nurtured, then it would be higher with 7% than what it is now. And different kinds of developmental delays are, in fact, the effect of poor early childhood development, and especially neurodevelopmental, physical, and cognitive developments are highly impaired as a result of adverse experiences during early childhood from 0 to 5 years of age. And specifically, in the context of conflict and crisis, and in areas where refugees are found, the problem could exacerbate. And children, especially under 5, have the highest incidence of illness and mortality rates through their travel from their place of origin to their destination. Therefore, and because around 11.7 million children are under age 5 out of 100 million displaced people, and because 52% of the world's refugees are children, and because children, especially in refugee settings, encounter diverse types of challenges than the normal ones, and because the only 2% of the humanitarian funds are allocated to children, while 52% of the refugee community are children, only 2% of the humanitarian fund is allocated to children. This calls for an urgent need for a comprehensive response. And that's what the AfriChild is doing. We are conducting research, we are generating evidences, we are co-designing interventions and programs to implement in the refugee settings, and all the programs and interventions are deemed to be community-led. So it is because of this problem. And specifically, when we come to in Ethiopia, particularly in refugee settings, ECD faces significant challenge due to systemic gaps in areas around the health system, the nutrition, the education, the protection life, the caregiving, and the safety areas as well. We know that there is limited access to early childhood education. We know that there is malnutrition, poor health services, psychosocial and protection risks, weak policy implementation, and funding gaps. Especially, we do have the policy, but the implementation is so inconsistent. And there are also cultural barriers and socioeconomic problems as well. Therefore, our children, and specifically children in the refugee settings, are living with these kinds of sets of multiple and complex problems. And moreover, the ECD programs existing in the refugee settings remain sporadic and fragmented, and with insufficient evidence regarding effective and scalable models for Ethiopia. And they lack contextually relevant programs. Most of them are shaped by Western-centric models. The implementer there are, most of them are the NGOs, international agencies, brought the Western-centric models, and they're trying to fix problems with their own lens. And as a result, many ECD programs follow the Western curricula, the pedagogics, even the assessment tools, the standards. All these are shaped by the Western-centric models. Traditional Ethiopian child rearing practices are often ignored. Language and cultural dominance are visible. it's rarely to see curriculums, learning material designed by their own specific language. Even teachers, it's rarely or it's almost impossible to find, a curriculum or teaching and learning material designed by, or even the teachers themselves. Who are fluent in their own language, standardized assessment that ignore local contexts as well, which usually label the locals as developmentally delayed, because the assessments and the standardized measures are more of Western-centric models. As a result, and from this assumption, we believe urgent need for programs that align with local values and resources and interventions grounded in research is critical. This means decolonizing ECD through co-designing is very pressing and a timely issue. It is through co-designing process that we are trying to decolonize the ECD. So why decolonizing ECD matters? ECD paradigms and practice must grow from our soil. Our children deserve to be served with their own language, with their own values, with their own traditions, with their own cultures, with their own paradigms as well. It's essential to center our ways of nurturing children instead of importing systems that don't reflect who we are, who our children are. And we must ensure that next generation grows in their own wisdom. When I say this, colonization didn't end with political independence. As Ethiopians, we might think that we are not colonized, but it doesn't have any relationship with political independence. It really lingers in how we are told to raise our children. Look into our curriculum. Look into how we are just evaluating their development. Look how we are labeling our children. The assessment, the standardization, the parenting system, the training mechanism, the approach, everything. How are we just raising our children? What kind of lens are we employing? So, decolonizing ECD means challenging and transforming the dominant, the Western-centric approach of child development to center, local knowledge, local culture, and community-led approach. Actually, after all, the Afri-Child believe that everything has to be community-led, and the co-designing really values this, and every program and intervention is designed with a full participation of the refugee community. However, decolonizing ECD is not about rejecting all global knowledge. It's just about balancing it with local wisdom to create systems that truly serve Ethiopian and refugee children. It doesn't mean that just we have to reject, but we should just incorporate the values, the cultures, our skills, our resources, everything, while, just adapting the Western approach, which can be, more harmonizing and positive or constructive for our development. It's a call to reclaim our ownership of our childhood learning and development. And guided by this foundational assumption, my team at the Afri-Child Stretch Project has initiated a collaborative co-design process where the refugee community was at the center of designing the intervention. With the co-designing, it's a participatory approach where the host community and the refugee community, the humanitarian actors, the service providers, partner organizations working in the refugee setting, and the researchers collaborate to design efficient programs, interventions for a better development of early childhood. Rather than imposing externally developed solutions, co-design ensures that interventions are culturally relevant, sustainable, and responsive to the real needs of displaced populations. Why they are sustainable, how relevant, and how responsive. I'll just discuss these things. So, the first, by co-designing, we can achieve the following. One, cultural sensitivity. Co-designing really ensures that interventions are culturally relevant and respectful of the community's values and norms. When the community participates in identifying the gaps, in explaining the root causes, and in designing solutions and interventions, it means that their values and their norms are included into the interventions. And therefore, it's becoming cultural sensitive. Empowerment, involving the refugee community in the designing process or in the co-creation process, empowers the community by giving them a voice in decisions that affect their lives. This can improve their agency and self-determination for sure. And relevance as well. Co-designing helps to identify unique needs. The refugee community does have unique needs that the normal community. Through the process of their travel from origin to destination, they could experience trauma. Even in the camp, their life, their tradition, and the social dynamics, everything is different, and their need is different. Therefore, considering this special need, this unique need is important, and therefore, to have a relevant intervention and program, it's important to just have a co-designing process, and it's important to build trust among them. Therefore, when a refugee feel heard and valued and participated, they are more likely to cooperate and engage within the intervention process. They would be happy to involve. They are just positive to share ideas. They are positive to implement, to support the programs, you see. And sustainability, rather than just bringing in an externally initiated programs to the community, if the community just initiate it, if they just design it, and if they just implement it, then the support they have and the sustainability to the project, to the programs would be very high, and holistic understanding as well. It helps us to understand who they are, what kind of trauma do they have, what kind of support do they need, what kind of psychosocial problem or harm do they experience, what kind of displacement, and what do they face, what kind of social dynamics do they have, social integration, interaction, and the like with the host and they themselves. Therefore, to understand all these things, co-designing is very essential. And therefore, it's from this assumption that we're trying to, and we're doing our co-designing process with the aim of decolonizing, the previously conventional approach of implementing programs, implementing and conducting interventions in a free setting. Therefore, this presentation explores the rationale for decolonizing ECD through a participatory co-design approach, drawing evidence from two key phases of our research. One, we had a baseline survey in April 2024, and this time we are conducting the co-designing or the co-creation with the community. Therefore, blending these two studies, I will just highlight on some of the major findings. And before that, let me just show you say something about the methodology. This is the Bambasi refugee camp, just 50 kilometers from Asosa. And the camp was established in 2012. And it hosts approximately, at the moment, around 23,000 individuals, actually, individual across 5,184 households, including 3,556 children under the age of 5 by the time of data collection. And it encompasses a diverse refugee population. This is the theoretical framework we are just employing. Adequate nutrition, responsive caregiving, safety and security, early learning, and good health. So the framework outlines 5 main components whose interaction ensures that children develop to their optimal potential. The research approach design, therefore, it's a kind of mixed method research approach. In fact, I have to be honest, we have been implementing both researches independently. The baseline is purely quantitative and the co-designing is qualitative. However, the evidence are just generated this way. But because the co-designing data collection tool has been designed based on the evidences we get from the baseline, from the quantitative approach, when we just merge together, it looks like, for this specific presentation, like mixed methods. And then it's a kind of sequential mixed method design. It could be explanatory mixed method design specifically, okay? And during the baseline, we just employ stratified random sampling, and the refuge camp has 3 zones. Each zone has blocks, communities, and households, and we just employ each community consists of 16 households, and out of 16 households, we just take 2 households. Therefore, a representative household has been taken from all zones, from all blocks, and from all communities. And an attempt was made to secure a comparable number of sex and age groups, and a total of 479 samples were taken from the host and refuge community in total. Based on the Krejcik and Morgan formula, it's believed to be the sample is believed to be adequate. For the co-designing, we just employ a qualitative approach. The sampling method we employed was purposive sampling. We had a criteria to just recreate the participants. It was also conducted both in the host and the refuge communities. So the RCC members, the caregivers, the service providers, the partners, the community advisory committee members, and 50 co-design team members. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Thank you. I think, sorry. Okay. I'm using another, just a phone number for my video, and then people are calling. Sorry for the interruption. So we just employed the tool for the survey. We employed the MICS, and there are different kinds of FGDs, CAS, experimentings, committee conversations, and systematic observations has been employed for the qualitative methodology. So the finding. So in the finding, I just only focus on the gaps we have identified and the co-design solutions, which is believed to be, just the strategies are believed to just decolonize, the system, the conventional system, the conventional approach, the programs to a new model and a new approach. So regarding early childhood education, the gaps we have identified very precisely, school attendance and dropout issues were there. It was a problem. Pre-primary school attendance was low. 19.2% didn't attend. Shortage of play and learning material. 93% do not have books or picture books. 52.1% do not have homemade toys. 46.4% do not have household objectives. And 69.8% does not have toys from a shop or manufactured toys. Therefore, this clearly shows that there is a huge shortage of learning and play materials. Lack of qualified teachers in preschools as well. Most of the teachers are grade 10 complete. No teachers we found who are certified or who just take trainings on early childhood education. Lack of timely and consistent food provision at school as well. There is a problem of school feeding, and children, if they just feel that they are starved, they don't want to just come to the school. So the strategies. So precisely, we believe it's important to integrate refuge communities' indigenous child rearing practices into ECD programs. Involve elders, parents, and local educators in curriculum design to reflect cultural values. It's important to prioritize mother tongue instruction as well. It is important to train teachers in bilingual or multilingual education to bridge the home and the formal learning. Sometimes, they might be purely, from the local community who just cannot understand the science, and who just could face problem to communicate with the partners and service providers within the community. Therefore, I think bilinguals and multilinguals are more avoid Eurocentric literacy materials, the posters, the teaching materials, all the things are, designed by the interest of the donors, and hence, they lacks considering the cultures, and they are not context specific and context appropriate. Therefore, while designing the materials, they should just consider, the books as well as the posters or the reading material should just reflect their own value, their own culture, their own contexts. So the image, everything should just be designed in that way and incorporate local music, games, dance, and oral traditions as core learning methodology in the room, rather than, just using a conventional method of teaching, like lecture and the like. Therefore, using music, games, dance, and oral tradition is important. In the preschools, we have been observing, the materials were broken and they were just locked in the room. For 5 or 6 hours, and the probability of experiencing these kinds of methods, learning through music, through games, through dance, through oral traditions, storytelling, folk telling, and the like, is very poor. And it is important to rethink development standard as well. What does development mean? What does development delay mean? What does literacy skill mean? And what does it mean that they are higher in their literacy skill, lower in their literacy skill? Therefore, while developing standards, it's important to rethink again, considering the context and the cultural values. B is responsive caregiving. The major gaps around caregiving, parental caregiving, is about half of children are left alone for more than an hour in a week. About 70% are left in the care of another child, and someone less than 10 years of age. Poor family engagement in many of the yardsticks or the indicators, like, for example, about 63% of mothers and 70% of us do not engage in reading books. Around 61% of us do not engage in telling stories. Around 86% of others do not engage in singing songs. And about 82% of others especially do not engage in playing with children. And about 80% of us do not engage in naming, counting, or doing things with children. Even if the problem, especially related to family engagement, is also there with mothers, especially fathers were found to be more detached with their children in many of the indicators of family engagement with children. It means their attachment is in danger. So, and in addition, the strategies shall be integrate traditional caregiving knowledge like communal child rearing or storytelling, herbal remedies, and the like, highlight role model fathers, and publicly honor very engaged caregivers or very engaged fathers specifically. Train male parent champions. There are parent champions within the refugee community. Therefore, training them, giving training for them, and then just allowing them to just serve as a mentor for other parents could serve better. Transition from standardized parenting curricula to culturally grounded intergenerational mentorship model is very important. And co-creating childcare materials with the refugees to reflect local idioms and values is critical. We begin, the prototyping, there are different kinds of play materials, plays themselves, indoor play, outdoor play, social plays. There are different kinds of plays. Therefore, while we are just designing the materials, I think co-creation and co-designing is important, and adapting and thinking, just considering their wisdoms and their knowledge, indigenous knowledge, is very critical. Push for national policy that recognize refugee-led care models is very critical. I think it's important if the national policy really disintegrate the early childhood development policies, specifically for humanitarian settings. Development of basic skills, especially literacy skills and socio-emotional skills. Literacy skill, we have got major gaps. Around 73% of children can't identify or name at least 10 letters of the alphabet. In fact, we have been asking English alphabet. That's a major gap by itself. 76% of children can't read at least 4 simple popular words with their own language and with their own context. Around 68% of children do not know the name of all numbers from 1 to 10. Therefore, this is for age 3 to 5. So this indicates that there is serious gap in their literacy development. Similarly, in their own socio-emotional development. Around 41% of children do not follow simple directions. 60% of children are not able to do it independently when they are told to do something. And 42% of children does kick, bite, or hit other children or adults. That means they do have negative social interaction with the other children. It means that there's problem in their own emotion and social development. And around 53% of children get distracted easily, as reported by their caregivers. So strategies: train teachers in multilingual pedagogy to bridge home language and formal instruction, especially for their literacy skills. Use culturally relevant visuals, Afrocentric imagery, or Ethiopian imagery, or refugee-specific imagery, familiar camp or agricultural contexts, maybe the context where they're living. Hire refugee educators as lead trainers, maybe because they know, they live, and they understand the context. Use culturally adapted tools to assess progress. We can use culturally adapted tools, establish safe zones where children can play, learn, and express emotions. Train parents or guardians in responsive caregiving to build secure attachment. Child disciplining and safety. There's problem in child disciplining. Around 22.8%, only this amount were found to employ non-aggressive disciplining towards their children. The remaining, around 78% of the parents were found to apply physical punishment in different ways. Specifically, around 18% of caregivers spanked, hit, or slapped their children, and about 24.9% of caregivers shouted, yelled at, or screamed at the child, and 13.75% of caregivers hit the child on the body with something like a belt, stick, or the like. This means, there's a tendency that they prefer to use aggressive disciplining of children or to employ physical punishment than non-aggressive disciplining, or like the negative punishment or so. So bullying on the way to end from kindergarten also endanger their safety, and continue practice of harmful traditional practice like FGM and child marriage also observed, especially FGM, as our focus is early childhood. FGM was notably evident there. So the strategies: restore communal accountability systems is important. Use storytelling for moral education. They have to be learned through the community's moral education system, the community's moral values. So, storytelling can just shape and can just modify, and they can, shape their behaviors. They can just lead them to develop and to adapt appropriate behavior and appropriate discipline. Using religious narratives as well. The refugee community is, they are Muslims, and Muslim religion, there are narratives which can shape, their kids, and therefore that kinds, adapting and taking or considering those narratives, religious narratives, and inculcating them to their parenting system would be important to shape their behavior. And it's important to avoid Western binaries as well. Sometimes, we just, fantasize or appraise the negative punishment, and we just criminalize the positive punishment. But sometimes the positive punishment or the corporal punishment, if it is just justified and if it has its own cultural nouns, it could be just advised in some ways. We just can discuss on this, but it's important that we cannot, nullify or neglect every kind of positive punishment in any way. It's important to discuss on this. Push UNHCR or ARISE to recognize indigenous disciplining systems. If they are, positive, if they are constructive, I think it's important to just consider this kind of disciplining systems. And another hand of traditions, dialogue-based alternatives to practice like, child marriage and FGM has to be a challenge. Eurocentric child rights framework that criminalize all corporal discipline without cultural norms. Finally, nutrition and health. We just saw major nutrition problem, poor nutrition and malnutrition, poor dietary practices, especially kill children. We have been asking them in the past 2 weeks their dietary practices, but we have found that around 67 do not have access to juice or juicy drinks. Around 54 54% do not have access to soup or medida in their language. Around 88% do not have access to infant formula or leban budra with their own language. 90% do not have access to milk from animals. 90%, imagine. They are surrounded by rural communities with farmers, but around 90% actually doesn't have access to milk, cow milk, or or powdered milk. And 20% of children experience diarrhea within the past 2 weeks, mainly due to uncontrolled consumption of untreated river water. There is big river flowing between Zone C and Zone A and Zone B, and the river is used for drinking purpose. That's a major problem. Poor toilet facilities, high incidence of malaria due to absence of mosquito nets. And to bridge the disconnect, the following strategies are adopted. One, avoid the monopoly of imported grains over indigenous staples. Imported grains like the wheat, the rice, we need to just avoid this, and we just should rely on indigenous staple foods, which are very common in the area. Design child-friendly foods like porridge for weaning instead of imported baby formula. Avoid the plumping nut dependency. Promote local foods. Provision of sufficient mosquito nets. Partner with local farmers to farm and move to self-reliance. Decenter Western biomedical dominance, and hire refuge sanitation garden to maintain facilities. Conclusion. So, to decolonize ECD, we must fundamentally shift power back to communities by centering indigenous knowledge, indigenous practice, indigenous values in education, caregiving, safety, nutrition, and health. And really, Western-centric ECD models often erase indigenous values. And specifically, the humanitarian and NGO-led ECD programs frequently impose the foreign expertise, the foreign values, the foreign curricula, while sidelining the local values and local knowledge or indigenous knowledge. Therefore, success requires divesting from top-down NGOs or international agencies' control and transform policies to reflect the grassroots realities. It's only by treating refugee communities as solutions rather than obstacles can we nurture children's holistic well-being. So decolonizing ECD is not just an option. It's an urgent necessity. And this is the time. Thank you very much.
Associate Professor Kasahun, for running us through your experience and actually the evidence you've gathered from Ethiopia. Again, I would reckon that this very study was also, or is also still being run within Uganda, because it was a two-country study. And I believe a few of Ugandan PIs might have joined us. But as Dr. Kasahun is catching his breath, maybe taking some little water, I want to appreciate him for the way he has systematically given us the evidence. He was giving us a strategy every after a variable. So a strategy of decolonizing. And then, of course, he's in his conclusion, he concludes very well and says it's not just to say, but ECD has to be decolonized. Thank you very much, Dr. and Associate Kasahun. So I want to open the Q&A. I want to open the Q&A at this moment. We have around 12 minutes to go, but they are okay. But to be very lenient, I want to start with the QA that was already in the inbox here before we can open to voices coming in from our participants. So Emma, do you want to read through the QA?
Okay, thank you, John. Good afternoon, everyone. The first question we see here is from Judy Kamanyi. In a context where access to external funding for humanitarian work is reducing drastically, how has or what have ECD actors in Ethiopia done or doing to ensure that resources are raised for co-designing for the decolonization of ECD in humanitarian settings?
Yeah. Second question.
The second question, what would be your thoughts around the indicators and findings regarding responsive caregiving in a collective society over an individualistic society as we attempt to deconstruct ECD? The third one is, what are your thoughts about local financing for ECD in Africa? Because it might be hard to decolonize ECD if it is still largely funded by the people in the global north. Let me just check the chat as well. Okay. I'm looking for questions. There's another question here. What examples do we have of indigenous disciplining systems in Ethiopia?
Okay, Doctor, thank you. Thank you very much, Emma, for reading through the questions in the QA.
Sorry, John.
So,
Sorry.
Doctor,
Can
would
Emma
you-
repeat the first question? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was interrupted.
Okay, the first question was in a context where access to external funding for humanitarian work is reducing drastically. How has or what have ECD actors in Ethiopia done or are doing to ensure that resources are raised for co-designing for the decolonization of ECD in humanitarian settings to happen?
So, Doctor, would you want to first answer those 4 questions
Thanks.
before we open up?
Right.
All right, thank you. Take it up.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the questions. I must thank the audience for attending the presentation with curious and vigor. So the first question, in the absence of fighting this external funding, what ECD actors have done in Ethiopia? It's unfortunate. In Ethiopia, there's very little initiative, and even the funding towards children is very low. Even I had, the experience of interviewing officials from the Ministry of Women and Children Affairs, and officials working in the Department of Children were telling me that this is a department which is overlooked by not only the government but also by the civil society organizations. So as far as the initiatives by the ECD actors is considered, only few, and those fews are even blended with other kinds of projects and programs. So it's hard to find independent programs, especially local programs, local initiatives, who are especially coming with their own funding and their own programs. As a result, most of the programs are either run by NGOs or international agencies, or they're funded by external bodies. And it's clear that they would be highly influenced by the interests of the donors as well. The second questions, for indicators for responsive caregiving among collective and individualistic cultures. The Westerners are known by their own individualistic parenting system, parenting traditions, caregiving traditions, as well as cultures. They are individualistic. They are living for themselves. But the refugee community plus most of Africans and specifically the Ethiopians are collectivists, and where we do have communal traditions, communal kinds of livelihood. Therefore, every system is going through these kinds of communal paradigm. Therefore, responsive caregiving should be just seen in this kind of lens. Therefore, elder brothers, elder siblings, elder sisters, uncles, aunts, fathers, mothers, grandmothers, grandfathers, all these have the responsibility in upbringing and raising the child. It shouldn't be just limited to a certain fund, a certain program coming from a certain agency, external agency, and only just limited to the curriculum or the experience they are sharing with us. But there are many values, there are many paradigms, there are different kinds of, traditions that we can share from our communities. In almost all of our communities, a communal and collective kinds of personality, collective kinds of development, parenting system, education system, it there, and that has to be enhanced, that has to be promoted, that has to be, encouraged in that way. Therefore, as collectivist community, we should highly based on the values and the asset we have as a family, as a community. There are different kinds of traditions that really centers on the development of children. It's important to just focus on them. Local financing, the third one, local financing for ECD in Africa. Still, that's similar to the first question. We do have a problem. And still the question is, well, we do have a problem. What can we do? We do need the money that comes from foreigners, the Westerners specifically. But let they give us the money and we design the program. Let we design the intervention along with our communities. We need the money more than they need the money. We need the money to, construct our community, construct, infrastructures, maybe to develop our children in different ways. We need health center, we need schools, we need different kinds of structure that directly or indirectly affect the development of children. We need that money. But we can design our own program, we can design our own intervention, and the money can benefit us more than it can benefit them. I think it's human for them to give us the money, but designing the program shall be left for us, for the community, and co-designing is important for that purpose. I think I've tried to address the questions, and with the indigenous, I think parenting or disciplining systems, in different community in Ethiopia, we do have proverbs of disciplining children. If you go to the Gada system in Oromia, if you go to the Amhara, if you go to Tigray, if you go to Somali, we do have novel disciplining mechanisms of children. It could just properly employ both negative punishment and positive punishment. By positive punishment, they can reasonably apply corporal punishment in a fair way and in a way that it can shape their behavior. It's not in a way that it can harm their mind. And they apply negative punishment as well, simply by just taking something positive, something which they like, something which please them, they can shape their behavior. We can just mention different kinds of proverbs, different kinds of traditions, practices within Ethiopia specifically. And we can just, I think, build upon these kinds of assets to discipline our children than, neglect and reject the corporal punishment aspect or the positive punishment aspect and focus on the cognitive approach as alone. Cognitive approach, for sure, if you just read into the Piagetian theories, Piagetian theory cannot perfectly fit to the Ethiopian kinds of community. You cannot discuss with a child at age 5 or at age 4 or at age 3. You cannot just explain things that this is good and this is not. Therefore, the only way is to show them just practically, tangibly, how it's good and or not. You could just shout on them, or in a soft way, you can adapt different kinds of mechanisms. And the other is, giving responsibility to peers, to siblings, and to family members. The nuclear family as well is important based on the tradition of I think the Ethiopians. Thank you. Over to you, John.
Thank you very much, Professor Kasahun. I believe the people who have asked questions have at least got, I can see thumbs up showing that you've vividly and extensively answered them. There are just 3 questions again in the chat and the QA. Maybe we may not open the voices to come in because we have 1 minute to go. So our dear members, kindly give us again just 5 minutes for us to sum up this, and then we can go. So there's a question in the Q&A, Emma. Okay. Then we come to the chat as well.
Okay, so let's just look at the Q&A quickly.
You had removed this. Okay. Let me just read the Q&A question here. First of all, it is a comment, then it's a kind of a question as well. I'm interested in what the strategies concerning physical change. I'm interested in what the strategies is concerning physically changed communities, if any. Oh, okay. Especially those who are visually impaired, challenged. Okay, physically challenged. Thank you very much for correcting that. Especially those who are physically or visual impaired. And then here in the chat, Madame Chidnove appreciates AfriChild. Okay. Appreciates you, Doctor. Madame Chinobe appreciates you. And then Jimmy also appreciates AfriChild for work in Changwali refugee settlement. And then Madame Chinobe again, Krukia, comes in and asks a question. How do we focus on decolonization of ECD while all the refugee programs are supported by the UN and international funders? And then Judith Kamanyi says, we need to build local philanthropy and not rely on foreign fund. Where I think Madame Judith was answering Fasil. Yeah, answering Fasil. But you can say something more about that as well. And then the rest are thanking you for the good presentation. So there are majorly 2 things, one in the QA and then 1 question here that Madame Judith will try to answer. You can say something about it, then we close.
Thank you, John. This question strikes me. How do we just focus on decolonization while all the refugee programs are UN funded? Yeah, actually I touched it previously. The UN do have the fund and the international agencies do have the money, but we should just firmly work on these kinds of new paradigm, the issue of decolonization. The academicians can come up with ideas, the academic arena, the academic environment has to be changed. The elites, all the assumptions, the paradigms has to be changed. If we are changed, it would be important to push, to persuade them, to give out the money, not their values, not their cultures or curriculums. And the other one is, I think it's important to have a committed government in Africa. We have been exploited in different ways. We may think that we are not colonized, but we are socially, economically, politically, psychologically, in many aspects. And all the colony system is mainly through their finance, their money. Therefore, how do we just emancipate ourselves from these kinds of colonization or mental slavery? We should stand, and the government has to be criticized, and the government has to be committed. Maybe they could just take the money, but they should just design context appropriate, culturally appropriate curriculum, culturally appropriate early childhood development programs. Local NGOs as well. Local NGOs working around children, they should be committed to design their own program, and especially programs which involve the community, the refugee community. Therefore, co-designing is important in that way. Therefore, without co-designing, without co-creation, without participating the refugee community, any kind of program has to be, criticized. It shouldn't be recommended. We just need to begin now. And as well, as one of my friends there say, the role of the philanthropist as well is very important. There are locals. If we just can collaborate, we do have many philanthropists, or we do have people who have the money, who have the potential to fund the refugee settings, to fund the minority groups, to fund the IDPs and the like. So, advocacy is important. Agencies or research programs like the AfriChild should keep advocating the importance of co-designing and the importance of decolonizing ECD from the Eurocentric approach. It is when we do that we will have a free and autonomous adolescent and adulthood a decade later. So the role of the government in decolonization, it's clear. The government has to be clear and have to be firm and committed and engaged in any kinds of intervention and program, whether they are really participating in the community, the specific community where the intervention is made. It is hard to say. In my experience, I've been involving in almost all regions of Ethiopia in different research activities, and especially in evaluation research. And the evidence we have got from almost all evaluation research, most of the fund is not properly allocated to the community where it is funded. It is somewhere. So, the government has to devise a mechanism of, controlling, supervising the funds and controlling as well as supervising or monitoring the intervention in the program approach, whether they are co-designed or not. Thank you. Do I miss anything, John? Sorry.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. I like calling you doctor because that is what I'm used to for the 2 years we have worked. But you've moved the ladders to associate professor. So thank you very much, Professor Kasahun Tilahun, for feeding us today and making sure that we understand what decolonizing ECD in humanitarian setting is.